The Palo Alto Network's firewall. Content ID configuration again. Now we're kind of into some more detailed things just on our own side, not even needing to rely on anybody else. That's file blocking and data patterns. The cool details of Content ID. So the neat stuff as we get in here for my file blocking or data patterns is I really don't have to do anything in terms of my devices, my licensing, or my updates or any fun thing like that, because it's completely up to me. Which means that if I'm defining everything that we're doing is into the objects. Okay? So when I start looking at this and coming up with my things in here, my security profiles, again, I got file blocking and data filtering, so both of them being down here. So when we start to look at this, and there is no defaults for it, go ahead and add. Now, information in terms of what we have the capability of looking at from a file standpoint, or what things are, I guess, predefined for us. So let's just call this user file block. Is really going to change per version of PanOS. So that's my method of getting the updates. And all it is just what happens to be common or what happens to be in there today that, you know, may or may not have been there before, but it gives us stuff to look at. So I'll go ahead and click on an add here. And as we go through it, it's just a matter of looking at my names that we have. All right? So exe files, you know, call it that. What application do you want to get it from? It can be any. I can hit add on here, and again, lots of different applications that I could be pulling file stuff from. So exe files, I'm actually going to leave at any. Now file types, of course, well, I'm looking for exe. So again, hit add right here. We'll see a huge long list of things that we have. Now notice as we scroll down, you'll even find some capability of encrypted ones. So I'll kind of get to that in just a minute. But exe files, so there we go with that. So I do want to have that. Click on it there. That's cool. Direction both. That's fine. With my action right here, this is where I want to get into a continue and forward. All right. So we can kind of scroll down there. So alert gives me a log. Block, of course, blocks it. Continue lets it go after the user clicks OK. Forward will actually send on to Wildfire. So just to go ahead and check things out, whether we need to panic about it or not. Continue and forward will do both getting the user to click OK. So I want that extra check in there just so, you know, there's something going, hello, are you really sure you want to do something with an executable file? It's really not very bright, but, you know, if you want to, make them think about it, and I'm going to go ahead and forward it on to Wildfire anyway. Like we talked about in our nugget about concepts, Wildfire is that virtual sandbox in the cloud, essentially, that Palo Alto happens to run. So we can send files up to them, have it all checked out. We can look at either via a web page or see the status in here as far as what the files that we sent, when we sent them, how many we sent, what the percentage was as far as benign versus the malware. So we get the whole variety of stuff in there. And of course, anything that we do see from an update perspective will not only come into our Wildfire updates if we have that subscription, but it will also go into our malware updates on a weekly basis. So not quite as immediate that way, but it still gives us something to go forward to. So there's a policy for exe files. Now let's see if I wanted to add zip files on here, and really zip via SMTP. We'll kind of be specific on that. So with an application standpoint, I'll want to go in here and click add, and without scrolling through all of them, just type SMTP until I get that there. So I'm good to go with that. Click on my file types, add, go down to zip, or can type it in, depends on how lazy I feel like I'm being. And right here, decide what it is I'm going to do with it. And I'm not going to do anything from that standpoint. I'll just go ahead and forward it on. So any zip files, I can really do the same thing with the ARJ, which is another type of archive. Missed a word there. Okay, so say ARJ via SMTP. And remember, all my naming conventions, everything I'm doing here is just to help me out down the road. Obviously, you could look at it just fine and see that it is that. Add ARJ is right there. And forward that on as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and go through another one. Well, it'll actually take me more than one, but let's say that our policy is that I'm going to block any encrypted files. I don't care what they happen to be. So the ones that I have that I know about on there, and it'll test just for encryption standpoint. Okay, so encrypted block 1, we have, I think, 9 of these if I remember right. So any application, my file types here, add my encrypted doc, add encrypted docx. So pretty much each of these, just go ahead and click and add. And the Office ones, PDF, and the PPTX. Yeah, so you kind of see as we go all of them we happen to be doing. The RAR, which is another type of archive. We might want to add that up above, but I'm not going to worry about it. Real life, you might want to do that. XLS, I should have XLSX, and then zip. Add one more, and zip. There we go. So it'll show any of these, any application. My encrypted block, actually I may as well go ahead and rename this. Just encrypted files. And then direction both is fine, and change my alert to block. And that's going to be a good policy as far as things that I want on there. Again, you've got the sky's the limit. You can do whatever it is that you want to do for it, but this is just an example of something that might be good policy for moving forward. Click OK on that. I'm good to go. I can go to my policy now, my security policy. Same way that I've been doing stuff before. Click over here on these icons. I got a file blocking one right now, which I'll just add user file block. All right, and we are good to go. So now I have something new, can go ahead and commit this. Overwrite current, yep, we are good to go. And then we will get into the data files. Telling me something. You told me this before, and you didn't seem to care. Send a packet capturing only. Okay, only the first packet. All right, so it's not a warning. Committed successfully. We're good to go. But only the first packet will be captured. That's fine. Nice that it gives us warnings every once in a while. But all right. So back to my objects, and now I'm looking at data filtering. So data filtering on here gives me the ultimate in wide variety of what I can achieve. Because basically, it's a data pattern. It's whatever I happen to want to do. Now, I'm just going to kind of keep things simple for right now in terms of breaking it in. Okay, so my HR data policy. Fair enough for that. We do want to do data capture. So as we see these things, again, especially if you're doing it for HR, you want to have that information logged. But what I want to do in here is kind of take a look at where we're at, so I can add things. Now, I do have a data pattern that I already have existing, and I'll go back to this one in just a second. But we'll just click on that for right now. You pick your data pattern, whatever it happens to be, and then pick applications, pick file types again, and I can go ahead and leave it as any, or both, what my threshold happens to be and my block threshold. So for alerting, I'll go ahead and just say 1, and on blocking threshold, we'll go ahead and we'll say 2. So simple enough on that. Now, if I want to add stuff again, and we can do the same thing over here under custom objects, by the way, is where data patterns is. See that? I know it's a little grayed out right now. But by clicking it right here and just clicking on data pattern will get me to exactly the same place. Now, in here, they have predefined credit card, social security number, or social security number without the dash. They have predefined data patterns in there, or your ability to add your own custom pattern in here. This custom pattern is added, just a name, and a regular expression of what that happens to be. So regex is a very powerful way of matching text values. It's also very complicated. So short of going into a bunch of details on here and going through that and really just confusing everybody, we'll leave it with the idea that you can use regular expressions in order to match on data, and if you have specific data that you want to do, that's how you're going to do it. Okay? Leave that alone beyond that. We can spend an entire hour going over regular expressions and still have people confused at the end of it. So, nice thing is, they're there, we have them. Go ahead and delete that one that we're working on. And just leave it at that. So my HR policy is going to revolve around the credit cards and the social security numbers that I had before. I have alert and block thresholds for it. We're cool. So I'll put that on there as far as where we're at. And now again, I can go back into my policy, go back where we were here, click on one of these, and I have a data filtering jack as well. So I'll just click on my HR policy, click on OK, and now I've added everything in there. So I pretty much have a profile that's good to go for every single thing, and I can go ahead and add it into other policies that I have as well, whatever combination I want, or creating a new security group that would involve all these things. Any of that would be perfectly fine. But that covers adding the security policies, or adding the security profiles into my security policy. So the last of my security profiles in here, well, really two things, I guess. We dealt with the specific data content, if you will. So file blocking, which was by extension, or my data filter, which was by a regex pattern. So all sorts of cool things that I have. But between the two of these, we can significantly block either the theft of data, transmission of data, sending out things that I'm not supposed to be sending out, allowing logging to go to up to wildfire, not to test things out. All sorts of protections that we can have, not just for the users and their machines, but for the intellectual property of my company itself. So cool things. As an IT person, by the way, especially when we get into things like social security numbers and credit card numbers, your job, or one of your jobs as a security engineer, is to not go to jail. It's an important thing. So if we can have networking equipment that assists us in that procedure to not have your company come under fire for that sort of thing, and you, of course, or I, being responsible for that information, if we can find ways to avoid that, life is good. So we'll kind of stick with that stuff. So everything we do on here, non-licensed, that's real good. Just go and set up our patterns, set up our actions, configure each of them. So configure, CFG profile, and then apply to policy. So very simple, very straightforward, very cool stuff. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.